All right, so you wake up, you look in the mirror, you repeat your affirmations with conviction. I am abundant. I am worthy. I deserve this. You've done this every single day for months, maybe even years. You've worked your way through temptations. You've forced yourself to stay positive. You've pushed through when every cell in your body wants to quit. But nothing really changes. Now you're starting to think, well, maybe manifestation doesn't work. Maybe this is just a bunch of hoo-ha that's been new age information that's come to light. People are making money off it, but maybe it only works for some people, but it just doesn't work for me. Maybe I'm the one that's broken. Maybe I'm not doing it right. Well, I'm here to tell you that this is not a character flaw. You are not broken, and it's not that you're not doing it right. The problem is how your brain is wired. Your brain is functioning on input that you have had embedded in your system since you were very young. Greetings, my name is Tammy, and I am the founder of the Thrive Frequency Hub. And this is where I teach the science of mindset and change. So we're going to look forward now and see what's happening inside your brain and why you're not able to manifest the life that you want for yourself. Now, what if I told you that no amount of willpower can override your subconscious programming? And where does this subconscious programming come from? Well, to understand this, we need to take a closer look at exactly what your subconscious and your conscious mind is. Well, there's something that might blow your mind a little bit. And honestly, when I first came across this, it completely changed how I thought about manifestation. So I learned this from some of Dr. Joe Dispenza's work. And once I understood this, it completely changed my outlook towards manifestation. I now understood why we struggle so much to create the lives that we actually want. So from the moment that you're born until about the age of 6, your brain is operating in what's called delta and theta brainwaves. Well, what does this actually mean? It means that you're essentially walking around in a hypnotic state. Everything that you're told and that you experience becomes your state of being. Your analytical mind, that part of your brain that questions things, that filters information, that goes, wait, is this actually true? Well, it doesn't even exist yet. It hasn't formed. So everything, and I do mean everything, that you see and hear and experience when you're a baby and up to that 6th year, it goes directly into your subconscious mind with zero filtering. It becomes your reality. So when your parents say that money doesn't grow on trees, or you're just like your father and you have a short temper, or maybe big girls don't cry, well, your little brain, it doesn't question it. It simply absorbs it as absolute truth and files it away as a program that will run automatically for the rest of your life. Now you might be thinking that, okay, I'm 6 years old, that's not too bad. After that, I'm good. Well, not quite. Because between the ages of 6 and 12, something else interesting starts to happen. Your analytical mind starts to form, but it's not fully formed yet. So you're starting to make decisions and decide what you're going to believe, but it hasn't quite fully developed. During this time, your brain is in what's called alpha states, and this is the realm of imagination and creativity. But during this time, you're still really highly programmable. Everything that you hear becomes your truth. So it's not about until the age of 12 that your analytical mind, that thinking part of your mind, really fully forms. And it creates what Joe Dispenza calls a barrier between your conscious mind and your subconscious mind. This is when your brainwave shifts into beta patterns, and suddenly you start operating primarily from conscious, logical thinking. But here's the kicker to this, and it's the part that really matters for manifestation. By the time you're about 35, Dr. Dispenza's research has shown that about 95% of who you are is just subconscious programming. 95%, that's a big amount. That means that only 5% of your daily thoughts, your daily behaviors, and your actions are actually conscious choices. They're actually decisions that you are directing. All of those programs that were installed before you were 12 years old are running on autopilot and running your life. So when you're sitting there and trying to manifest abundance or trying to create a new reality for yourself, well, your subconscious mind is actually running programs from childhood that say money's hard to come by, or people like us don't get what we want. You've got 5% of your mind saying, I want to be wealthy, while the other 95% of your mind is running a completely different program in the background. And it's really hard to change that. This is how our brain works and how it develops. So it's kind of like trying to drive north while your autopilot is locked on south. You can push that gas pedal all you want, but you're still going in the wrong direction. Now, here's the good news about all of this, and this is why I am so passionate about this work. These programs are not hardwired into your brain. They are learned programs, which means that they can be unlearned. You can reprogram your subconscious mind. You can create new neural pathways. You just have to know how to do it, what approach to take. You can literally rewire your brain to support that future that you're trying to create instead of constantly letting it pull you back into your past. But in order to do that, you've got to understand what you're working with. You need to know that it's not just about positive thinking or motivation or willpower. It's not about creating vision boards and meditating. What you're actually up against is decades of subconscious programming that's been running the show since before you could tie your shoes. Hi, my name is Tammy, and I am the founder of the Thrive Frequency Hub. And this is a site where I teach mindset and change and offer different outlooks and different programs to actually change that mindset and start living the life you desire. So let's talk a bit now about your subconscious mind and your conscious mind. Your subconscious mind, it processes 40 million bits of information per second, whereas your conscious mind, it only processes about 40 bits per second. So when you're trying to force change with discipline and affirmations, you're basically bringing a squirt gun to a forest fire. It's not going to work. And it's not you. You're not lacking willpower. You're not lacking discipline. You are simply using the wrong approach for how your brain is actually wired. And this is why different mental patterns require different training methods. So we are going to move forward with this thought. We are going to start to understand where these programs come from. And now I'm going to show you what's actually happening inside your brain when change fails. Because once you understand this system that you've been struggling with, it will all start to make sense. Almost everything that we're taught about change comes from focusing on the conscious mind, on motivation, on goals, on positive thinking, on forcing new behaviors. But remember, the conscious mind is not the system that actually runs most of your life. Most of what you think and do every day is driven by automatic neural patterns that operate far below your awareness. These are those patterns that were instilled in your brain when you were very young. Now, if you try to change your life by working only at a conscious level, you're basically trying to steer a massive ship just by turning a small wheel on the deck. So the real question is not, how do I become more disciplined? The real question that you have to look at is, how do I retrain the systems in my brain that are quietly producing my behavior in the first place? And once you understand that change, well, then that change stops being a battle. It starts becoming a training process. Now, remember that most of us were taught from a very young age that change is a matter of trying harder, more discipline, more motivation, more control. But stop and think for a moment. If that were true, the people who try the hardest would be the ones who change the most. And that is not what we see. In reality, the people who change consistently and achieve the lives that they desire are the ones who understand how their brain works. They learn how to manage these systems instead of fighting them. And this is what I want to discuss with you today. Conscious change is a major mistake because automatic systems run most of your life. That's important. You got to remember that. Most of what you think and feel and do every day is driven by automatic neural patterns that operate far below your consciousness. If you try to change your life by working only at that conscious level, well then failure is your only outcome. I'm going to repeat that because this is really important. Understanding that change happens at a subconscious level will become the day that you realize that change is actually nothing more than a training process. So, to summarize this point, remember that your conscious mind is very good at setting goals. It's good at making plans, deciding what you want, but it's not the system that runs most of your behavior. That behavior is controlled by your automatic mind. What you do each day, how you eat, how you work, how you procrastinate, how you react to things, it's all controlled by automatic neural programs that run without your awareness. You are not consciously choosing your behavior. What you are doing is executing patterns that were learned over time. So let's now take a closer look at these patterns. Patterns are not stored in your brain as intentions. They are stored as habitual loops because the brain loves predictability and habits require far less energy. So your brain repeats what has worked before. A cue will trigger a routine, the routine produces a result, and then your brain just says repeat. And once that loop is learned, it runs automatically, even when you consciously want to do something different. This is why you can sincerely want to change and still find yourself repeating the same behavior over and over and over again. So now let's introduce the dopamine into this whole system and how this program works. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter. It's a chemical messenger in the brain. Most people think of dopamine as the pleasure chemical, but dopamine is not primarily about pleasure. It's about learning and prediction, and it plays a central role in motivation and behavior. Now, dopamine fires when the brain predicts a reward. It strengthens that loop, and it enforces the repetition. It tells your brain, this behavior matters, remember this, and then repeat this. So every time a habit produces some kind of emotion, like relief or comfort or distraction or reward, well, dopamine is there strengthening that loop, even if that habit is slowly undermining your life and what you're trying to change. So you see, people are not stuck in random habits. They are stuck in dominant thought patterns. Now, what science has proven is that most people are controlled by only one or two dominant neural patterns: anxiety and avoidance, dopamine seeking that pleasure, control patterns, overthinking patterns, patterns of craving. And this is the part that most self-help courses completely miss. Once a dominant pattern is running your life, a generic solution at changing that pattern will almost always fail. Different patterns require different retraining methods. And if you try and use the wrong method for your particular pattern, well, you'll keep trying harder and then just keep getting the same results. So now we can see what the real problem is. Most people are trying to change a system that they don't completely understand, and they are using tools that were never designed to retrain that particular system. And this leads to the biggest mistake that I see people make over and over and over again. They chase results instead of looking at retraining the process. They focus on the outcome that they want, more money, less anxiety, more discipline, instead of focusing on the system that is quietly blocking their results. They then try and force change, and that only creates resistance. Retraining the brain is what creates actual change. So the biggest mistake of all is trying to use the same method for every mind. Remember, different patterns require different retraining methods. Now, here's something interesting that most people never realize. While the details of each of our lives are very different, the number of dominant mental patterns that control human behavior is actually quite small. You see the same patterns repeated over and over again. Anxiety, avoidance, over-control, craving, overthinking. And what determines whether you succeed or stay stuck is not how hard you try, it's which one of these patterns is quietly running your mind and how to change it. Because each one of these patterns block change in a different way. And each pattern requires very different retraining methods. This is why generic advice fails. And this is why I stopped teaching manifestation alone. The real starting point is diagnosis. What is running your brain? It's understanding which pattern is producing your behavior in the first place. So this is why I created a short science-based assessment. It takes about 2 minutes, and it shows which mental pattern is most likely blocking your results and which method is designed to retrain that pattern. When you are finished answering a few short questions, you get then a personalized result that explains what your dominant pattern operating beneath your awareness is, why that pattern keeps producing the same behaviors, and what type of retraining method is going to work the best for your particular pattern. So if you would like to take this free quiz and see your results, the link is down below there. Okay, most of us now were taught that change is a matter of trying harder, more discipline, more motivation, more control. We've established this. But the brain doesn't change through force. It changes through training. And like you wouldn't expect your body to transform with understanding how your muscles adapt, well, you can't expect your mind to change without understanding how neural systems work. You're not broken. You're not doing it wrong. You're just using tools that were never designed to retrain the systems that actually run your life. And once you understand that, then change stops being a battle and it starts becoming a skill that you can practice every day. Not through willpower, not through forcing, but through understanding how your mind actually works. And that is what I hope that you have learned here today.